Ellen Matthews stood frozen at her vanity, fingers trembling as she tucked baby's breath into her hair. Tomorrow. Her wedding day. Finally, at 32, she'd have one day that wasn't about Jenna. The phone's shrill ring made her jump. Mom. Ellen's stomach knotted instantly. Hi, Mom, she answered, already dreading whatever was coming. Ellen, honey. That tone. That specific tone that always preceded some sacrifice for Jenna. We need to discuss tomorrow. What about it? Everything's set with Pastor Williams. That's just it, sweetie. You need to postpone. Jenna's birthday celebration. You know how important turning 35 is to her. With her promotion at the bank, she's been planning this for months. Ellen watched her reflection blur as tears welled up. Mom, my wedding is tomorrow. Everything's paid for. People are flying in. Well, you should have checked the calendar. You know her birthday's always been special. Ellen's heart cracked. Of course. Jenna first. Always. Mom, I sent save the dates a year ago. You've known this date forever. Silence stretched between them like an endless country road. Ellen Jean, listen. Your sister had a rough year. This promotion is everything to her. She needs family tomorrow. And I don't? The question hung there, dangerous as a wasp nest. Don't be dramatic. You can get married anytime. It's just a ceremony. Just a ceremony? The words cut deeper than broken glass. Ellen gripped the phone tight. I've waited forever to marry David. I planned every detail while working 2 jobs. I'm not changing it. Then I guess you'll be getting married alone. Your father and I will be at Jenna's party. What? You heard me. Make your choice, Ellen. For once, Ellen didn't hesitate. I choose me, Mom. For the first time ever, I choose me. Fine. Get married alone. Goodbye. The line went dead. Ellen stared at the phone, shell-shocked. 20 minutes later, David found her there, still staring. Ellie, what happened? His voice warmed her like sunshine. They're not coming. Jenna's birthday matters more. David's face darkened. That ain't right. Plain and simple. Ellen looked up at this man who'd waited for her through 3 broken engagements, each one sacrificed for Jenna's needs. No, she said. It sure isn't. Something inside her, something that had bent for 32 years, finally snapped clean. That night, Ellen made calls and withdrew her honeymoon savings. By morning, she had a plan. They married at 10 a.m., surrounded by true friends who'd watched her disappear in Jenna's shadow for years. At noon, sitting in Magnolia Cafe, Ellen checked her watch. Should be happening right about now. David raised an eyebrow. Gonna tell me what you did? Ellen just sipped her tea, smiling. Across town, Jenna's birthday party was in full swing when the doorbell rang. Mrs. Matthews opened the door to find delivery men with the largest flower arrangement she'd ever seen. Special delivery for Jenna Matthews, the man announced loudly. Guests gathered as the massive explosion of lilies and roses was carried into the yard. There's a card, someone pointed out. Jenna plucked the envelope from the blooms. Her carefully made-up face fell as she read. What is it, honey? Her mother asked. Jenna's hands trembled. It's from Ellen, she read aloud. Dear Jenna, congratulations on your birthday and promotion. While you celebrate, I'm becoming Mrs. David Cooper, since you and our parents decided my wedding wasn't important enough to attend. I wanted to make sure your birthday was special. Enjoy these flowers. And the entertainment I've arranged. Right on cue, engines rumbled outside. 3 vintage Cadillacs pulled up. And out stepped musicians followed by Jenna's ex-boyfriend, the one she dumped just before he made it big in Nashville. I hear there's a birthday girl needing a special song, he said, tipping his hat. But instead of Happy Birthday, he launched into an original about a self-centered woman who always had to be in the spotlight. Mrs. Matthews turned scarlet. Mr. Matthews suddenly became fascinated with his shoes. And Jenna, perfect, privileged Jenna, for once had absolutely nothing to say. Back at the cafe, Ellen's phone buzzed with texts. Cousins and friends at the party sent pictures of Jenna's mortified face, her parents' shock, the country singer belting lyrics that hit too close to home. Sweet mercy, David whistled low. You actually did that? I did. Ellen set down her phone. I'm not exactly proud, but I'm not sorry either. He reached for her hand. You've spent your whole life disappearing. Maybe they needed to see you for once. The phone rang. Her mother. Ellen silenced it and tucked it away. Not today, she said. Today's ours. As they drove toward their modest Blue Ridge cabin honeymoon, unexpected tears slid down Ellen's cheeks. Regretting it? David asked softly. No. She wiped her face. Just mourning something I never really had. That night, as fireflies rose from the meadow grass like drifting stars, Ellen's phone rang again. This time she answered. Ellen Jean. Her father's voice sounded old, worn thin. What you did today wasn't right. Neither was abandoning your daughter on her wedding day, Dad. The silence stretched between them, painful as barbed wire. Your sister's been crying for hours. Ellen closed her eyes, feeling the familiar undertow pulling her back to her old role. Fix it, Ellen. Make Jenna feel better. Put yourself last. Again. I'm sorry she's upset, Ellen said carefully. But I'm not sorry for what I did. It was cruel. And what you all did wasn't. Another heavy silence. We should have been there, he finally admitted, words that clearly cost him. We were wrong, Ellie girl. Dead wrong. The unexpected admission left her speechless. I don't know if you can forgive us, he continued. But I'm hoping maybe you'll try. Eventually. Ellen watched the fireflies, thinking about patterns that repeat until something breaks the cycle. I love you, Dad, she said finally. But things have to be different now. I know. 2 simple words, carrying the weight of decades. 3 weeks later, they found an invitation in their mailbox. Dinner at her parents' house. Just the 4 of them. No Jenna. You want to go? David asked, watching her carefully. Ellen turned the card over in her hands. I think I do. The dinner was awkward as a cow on ice. Her mother kept rearranging silverware. Her father cleared his throat every few minutes. The pot roast is good, Mom, Ellen offered. Thank you, sweetie. It's Grandma's recipe. Silence fell again, thick as August humidity. Finally, her father set down his fork. We've been thinking, your mother and I. Ellen braced herself for excuses or accusations disguised as apologies. We've been unfair to you, he said instead. Not just about the wedding, your whole life. Her mother dabbed at her eyes. We didn't see it. Or maybe we didn't want to. Why? The question that had haunted Ellen since childhood finally escaped. Why was it always Jenna first? Her parents exchanged glances, a whole conversation passing between them without words. When Jenna was born, her mother began, she was sickly. Doctors didn't think she'd survive her first year. This was news to Ellen. We prayed and bargained with God, her father continued. Promised anything if he'd let her live. And she did, Ellen said, understanding dawning. She did. But our gratitude turned into something else. Something unhealthy, her father finished. For all of us. Ellen thought about her sister, always demanding, somehow fragile despite her success, always needing to be first. Where is she now? Ellen asked. At home. We told her she needs to find her own way for a while. She didn't take it well. Ellen hardly recognized these parents setting boundaries with Jenna. It's long overdue, her mother said, reaching for Ellen's hand. We're sorry, Ellen. So very sorry. The simple, direct apology caught Ellen off guard. I don't know if I can just forget everything, she admitted. We're not asking that, her father replied. Just maybe for a chance to do better. Seems to me that's all any of us can ask for, David observed quietly. Later that night, Ellen stared at their bedroom ceiling. You think they'll really change? She asked. David considered this carefully. People can surprise you. Look at you, standing up for yourself after all these years. That's a kind of miracle right there. I had good reason. And they have good reason too. Losing you would change anybody with sense. Ellen thought about forgiveness. Not a moment, but a practice. Like tending a garden through seasons. Months passed with careful steps. Sunday dinners. Phone calls without tears. her mother showing genuine interest in Ellen's photography business. Jenna remained distant until Thanksgiving, their first holiday together since the wedding. As Ellen set up for a family photo, Jenna approached her. "Can we talk? Outside?" They stood on the porch, breath clouding the November air. "I've been terrible to you," Jenna said abruptly. Ellen waited, speechless at this unprecedented admission. "All my life I've been the special one," Jenna continued, her perfect composure cracking. "I didn't know how to be anything else." "And now?" Ellen asked. "Now I'm trying to figure that out. Without an audience." Ellen really looked at her sister maybe for the first time. Beyond the perfect exterior, she saw vulnerability, fear even. "It's hard," Ellen said, "being just a regular person. How do you do it? Not need everyone watching all the time?" The question was so earnest, so stripped of Jenna's usual polish that Ellen felt unexpected compassion. "You find what matters," she answered. "What's real? Everything else is just noise." Jenna nodded, absorbing this like a foreign language. "I'm seeing someone," she admitted. "A therapist." "That's good. She says I have something called narcissistic tendencies." Jenna laughed without humor. "Apparently being told you're perfect your whole life messes you up." "Who would have thought?" Ellen said with a small smile. "I'm sorry about your wedding," Jenna said suddenly. "I should have been there." The words hung between them, a tentative bridge across decades of complicated history. "Yes, you should have," Ellen agreed, not making it easy, but then added, "There will be other important days." Jenna looked surprised. "You'd want me there? After everything?" "We're sisters. That doesn't just disappear because we've been terrible at it." When they returned inside, something had shifted, subtle as a weather change, but real. They weren't friends, not yet. Maybe not ever in the way some sisters were, but they were something new, something with possibility. That night, as David drove them home through falling snow, he asked, "Good day?" Ellen watched the winter world transform outside her window. "Different," she said, "in a good way." By spring, Ellen's photography business took an unexpected turn when a magazine editor commissioned her for a series on Southern families, the complicated reality beneath the Sunday dinner veneer. Her first major exhibit opened on a warm April evening. David stood proudly beside her as people admired her large black and white prints. "They're coming," he whispered, nodding toward the door. Ellen turned to see her parents and Jenna arriving, looking slightly out of place but determined. The centerpiece of the exhibit was a triptych of her own family. The first showed them as they had been, her parents and Jenna in sharp focus, Ellen blurred in the background. The second captured the wedding day confrontation. The third was from Thanksgiving, all four of them, nobody centered, nobody faded. Her mother stood before these images for a long time, one hand pressed to her mouth. "It's our story," she finally said, voice thick. "The real one." "Not all of it," Ellen corrected gently. "Just the parts we've lived so far." Later, Jenna offered Ellen a glass of sparkling cider. "2 new chapters," she proposed. They clinked glasses, these sisters learning each other anew. Ellen and David celebrated their first anniversary with a picnic by the creek where they'd first met. "Happy?" he asked, watching her dip her toes in the cool water. "Getting there," she answered honestly. "You? With you? Always." "I have something to tell you," she said, sudden nervousness fluttering in her chest. David sat up straighter, alert to her tone. "What is it, Ellie?" "We're going to need a bigger apartment." She placed his hand on her stomach. "Come November." His face transformed with joy. "A baby?" She nodded, laughing as he whooped loud enough to startle a nearby heron into flight. That evening they shared the news with her parents, who responded with genuine happiness. Everything Ellen had once despaired of ever seeing. When November arrived, Ellen went into labor 3 days before Jenna's birthday. The timing, as if their child was determined to claim their own space on the family calendar, made her laugh even through contractions. Jenna postponed her birthday dinner without being asked. "Some things matter more," she said simply. After 17 hours, Catherine Ellen Cooper arrived, a tiny, perfect beginning. When Jenna visited the hospital, she brought a framed photograph, Ellen as a toddler, serious-eyed and watching the world from behind her mother's legs. "Found this in Mom's attic," she explained. "Thought Catherine should know where she comes from." Ellen studied the image of her younger self, a child already learning to make herself small. She comes from fighters, she said, looking at her sister. On both sides of the family. Jenna smiled, understanding. Strong women run in our blood. As they sat together, the baby sleeping between them, Ellen thought about the long road that had brought them here. The hurts and healing, the broken patterns and new beginnings. Thank you for my wedding present, Jenna said suddenly, with a hint of mischief. Not many sisters would hire an ex-boyfriend to sing insults at a birthday party. I've always been an overachiever, Ellen replied dryly. And for the first time in memory, they laughed together, really laughed, the sound bright and genuine as morning light. Not perfect, but beautiful in its imperfection, like families, like forgiveness, like life itself.